Good morning, children. Today we are moving to part 4 of chapter 10, Organs of Government. Today's topic we will be discussing about the legislature at the state level. That small topic will be discussing. This already we have discussed in the first lecture. Little bit more details we are adding to this topic. Okay. Come to page number 77 of your textbook, Legislature at the State Level. Before starting this section, let me come to page number 73 for a little revision. There, under the heading Legislature, we have studied that our country, our parliament consists of a president, vice president, Rajya Sabha and Lok Sabha, and our legislature is of two types, that is unicameral legislature and bicameral legislature. Unicameral means one house and bicameral means legislature consisting of two houses. This section we are going to discuss in detail in page number 77, legislature at the state level. Okay. Now, Legislative Assembly. Each state has a legislature and it is called Legislative Assembly. Legislative Assembly is the lower house. Legislative Council, here bicameral, this is what we are talking about. The other house of the legislature is called Legislative Council. States like Bihar, Maharashtra, Karnataka, Uttar Pradesh, Tamil Nadu, etc. have two houses. There, the Legislative Council is of upper house and Legislative Assembly is the lower house. Gujarat state does not have a Legislative Council. This is what we have discussed in page number 73, bicameral legislature. In India, we have two houses at central level. That is the upper house, upper house of the legislature, Rajya Sabha, and the lower house, Lok Sabha. At the same way, some of the states of our country are having two houses in the state level. Okay, and that is called a Legislative Assembly and Legislative Council. That's what we have discussed here. So, Legislative Council. Various states have different number of members of the Legislative Assembly. Legislative Assembly में भेजने के लिए हमारा number of members is different as per the population and all. We are deciding how many members should be sent to the Legislative Assembly. As per the provision of the Constitution, the minimum number of members of Legislative Assembly is 60 and maximum is 500. The number of members of Gujarat Legislative Assembly at present we are having 182 members. What is the qualification for a membership of the state legislature? Any person who is a citizen of India and his age is 25 years or more and not in a state of unsound mind, insolvent or criminal, and if he is finishing all this criteria, then he can contest for the elections of the Legislative Assembly. What is the time period? The Legislative Assembly is not a permanent house as we have discussed. Its time period is 5 years. Please underline. What is the time period of Legislative Assembly? 5 years. After the given period, the Legislative Assembly is dissolved. In unusual situations wherein the government cannot function as per constitutional power provision, or if government cannot be formed, then the governor can send a recommendation to the President of India to dissolve the government. The President can dissolve the Legislative Assembly and imposes President rule in that state. What do you mean by President rule? What do you mean by President rule? In India, President's rule is the suspension of state government and imposition of direct central government rule. Under Article 356 of the Constitution of India, a state government is unable to function according to constitutional provisions. The central government can take direct control of the state. It is exercised through the centrally appointed governor who has the authority to appoint other administrators to assist them. In such situation or this condition is called a president's rule. During that time, that is what I told you, during that time, that period, the governor administers the state. Who will be the in charge of the state? The governor will be in charge of the state for the purpose of smooth functioning of the legislative assembly. Speaker and deputy speakers are elected by the members from among themselves. Okay. In a state legislative council, the members are selected from among the institutions of local self-governance, registered graduate teachers of the secondary and higher secondary by electorates. To be eligible as a member of the legislative council, the candidate should be of 30 years or more and must be a citizen of India. The legislative council is a permanent house like the Rajya Sabha. Each of its members get elected for a term of 6 years. This we have seen in the previous section. Our legislative council and in Rajya Sabha and Lok Sabha, how we are selecting the members. That in page number 74 we have seen the qualification for members of Lok Sabha and qualification for members of Rajya Sabha. Same thing is applicable here. Lok Sabha, it is time period is 5 years, and Rajya Sabha, the permanent house, the time period is 6 years. Same way you should compare the Lok Sabha with the state legislative assembly and Rajya Sabha with the state legislative council. Here you remember, in Rajya Sabha we are having, there is a permanent house, time period is 6 years, and citizen should be an age of 30 and above to who is going to become the member. Indian citizen hona chahiye, he should not unsound mind, insolvent, criminal. वो सब criteria इधर भी same है, किधर legislative council में भी same है. He should member of the eligible as a member of legislative council, the candidate should follow 30 year more and more, 30 or more, and must be a citizen of India, etc. etc. सब criteria उधर same है. Same way, 1/3 member retire every 2 years. Same thing is applicable here in legislative council. So this, it should be very clear for you while you are studying this section. That's what we are continuing in. It's 2/3 members retire every 2 years. But in Rajya Sabha, 1/3 members retiring, and in state legislative council 2/3 members retire every 2 years. That's the difference. You should, minute differences are there. State has to decide whether to keep a legislative council or not. Like the Lok Sabha, the legislative assembly has more powers. So while discussing about legislative council, legislative assembly is having more power. Ordinary as well as money bill can be presented in it. After the bills get passed through various steps, they are sent to governor for the assent. Whereas in Lok Sabha and Rajya Sabha, there we are sending the bill to the President of India for his final assent. But in a state legislative assembly and legislative council, we are sending to governor, because in state, instead of president, governor is the in charge. After the governor signs it, the bill become an act. Next topic, executive powers of the state legislative assembly. What are the executive powers of the state legislative assembly? The most important function of the legislative assembly is to act as the highest law-making organ of the state. In unicameral state legislature, all bills on subjects in the state list are initiated and passed by this house. This house means state legislative assembly before sending to the governor for his assent. In bicameral state legislature, the money bills can be introduced in the legislative assembly only. This difference you should note. The ministers, including the CM, remain in power as long as they enjoy the confidence of the majority of the members of the Legislative Assembly. The Assembly alone considers the reports of the Public Service Commission of the state. Here you will be able to identify the difference between the Legislative Assembly and the Legislative Council. As we had discussed in the previous section, Legislative Assembly is in the lower house. It is also known as Vidhan Sabha, whereas Legislative Council, it is upper house, it is known as Vidhan Parishad. Time period of Legislative Assembly is 5 years, and after 5 years it will get dissolved, whereas the Legislative Council is a permanent house, it will not dissolve. Members will be retired every 2 years and they will be replaced. In a Legislative Assembly, the time period or members are elected for 5 years, and here in Legislative Council they are elected for 6 years. Legislative Assembly, the members retire after 5 years. That is, time period खत्म हो जाएगा तब retirement हो जाएगा. Otherwise membership majority support नहीं है तो भी उनका time period lapse हो जाएगा. Whereas in Legislative Council 2/3 members retire every 2 years and time period is 6 years. To become the member, the candidate must have minimum age of 25 years, whereas in Legislative Council it is 30 years. There are 182 members in Vidhan Sabha of Gujarat, whereas in Legislative Council, Vidhan Parishad, Gujarat does not have Vidhan Parishad, and so there is no question of number of members, because ours is a unicameral Legislative Assembly. We are having unicameral. Okay, I hope you understood this. Please study this and draw very neatly into your notebook. This is an important question for your examination. Now come to page number 78 of your textbook. Under the first heading, executive, we will be discussing about it. The most efficient, effective and central organ of the government is the executive. What is the duty of the executive? To execute the functions, the work. The union executive means at central level, means at central government. Political executive comprising administration of the Prime Minister and cabinet ministers, President, Vice President and the bureaucrats. Political and administrative executive officers are employees are in direct contact of the people. The people are influenced by their work. The executive implements the laws framed by the legislature. The administrative executive carries out the work of the implementing the policies, programs and plannings done by the government, keeping in view the aspiration and expectation of the people. Now, we will see that executive, we are having two types of executives. That is what we are going to discuss in the next section. Yes, next is executive organ of the government. What do you mean by executive? That already we have discussed. Executive means the one who execute the rules and regulations, and administration of law. That is the main duty or function of executive, to execute the function of the rules and regulations of the country. Now, in India, the executive consists of two parts, political executive and administrative executive. बेटा ये सब ध्यान से सुनना है, बिकॉज इसका कंटिन्यूएशन अभी लास्ट लेक्चर में भी आएगा कि हमारा एग्जीक्यूटिव, दैट इज पेज 80. अगेन वी हैव टू डिस्कस अबाउट दिस executive. Before that, I would like to make it clear that executive, it is divided into two, political executive and administrative executive. Political executive मतलब हमारा रूलर्स, जैसा ही हमारा MLAs, MPs, वो सब पॉलिटिकल एग्जीक्यूटिव. पॉलिटिक्स मीन्स हाँ, पॉलिटिक्स के साथ, दैट इज ऐसा एग्जीक्यूटिव ये 5 साल के लिए इलेक्शन करके वो ऊपर जाएगा, और वो लोग है पॉलिटिकल एग्जीक्यूटिव. और दूसरा है एडमिनिस्ट्रेटिव एग्जीक्यूटिव, एडमिनिस्ट्रेशन करने के लिए, रूल ये एडमिनिस्ट्रेट सब ठीक चल रहा है वो सब देखने के लिए. और दूसरा एक सीक्रेट में बोलूँ, पॉलिटिकल एग्जीक्यूटिव मीन्स वो वहाँ पॉलिटिकल एग्जीक्यूटिव बनने के लिए इन लोगों के लिए कुछ क्या क्वालिफिकेशन चाहिए एमएलए या एमपी बनने के लिए। एमएलए है तो 25 ईयर या 30 ईयर एमपी के लिए ऐसा इंडियन सिटीजन होना है, केस कुछ नहीं होना है, ये सब भी है। बट एडमिनिस्ट्रेटिव एग्जीक्यूटिव के लिए दे हैव टू बी ए वेरी क्वालिफाइड पर्सन, जैसे कि हमारा आईएएस, आईपीएस, जज, ये सब हमारा एडमिनिस्ट्रेटिव एग्जीक्यूटिव है। वो बनना है तो आपको पढ़ना पड़ेगा। वी हैव टू स्टडी एंड वी हैव टू बी एबल पीपल, दैट इज एडमिनिस्ट्रेटिव पीपल, administrative executive, or the administrative executive is otherwise known as permanent executive. Political executives, they are not permanent, their time period is 5 years, but administrative executives, once they are after their graduation, डिग्री के बाद कोई भी एक सब्जेक्ट में डिग्री और उसमें आप सिविल सर्विस एग्जामिनेशन पास होना है, उसके बाद आपको ट्रेनिंग मिलेगा, उसके बाद आप डिप्यूटी जैसे डिप्यूटी कलेक्टर या डिप्यूटी आईपीएस ऑफिसर, आईएएस ऑफिसर जैसे आपको अपॉइंट होने के बाद यू विल बी अपॉइंटेड और यू विल बी वर्किंग एज एन आईएएस ऑफिसर, आईपीएस ऑफिसर टिल एट द एज ऑफ 60। और वो हर स्टेट में अलग अलग होता है। सम स्टेट्स 56 एज में रिटायरमेंट होता है, सम स्टेट 60 years you will be getting retired. So that is the difference between political executive and administrative executive. Now, executive organ of the government. As I have discussed you, the main function of executive is to execute the rules and regulation. And executive is divided into two, political executive and administrative executive. Administrative and political executive officers are employees are in direct contact of the people. Their discussions and work affect the life of people. Now we will discuss about political executive in detail. The elected representatives who form the government are known as the political executive. At central level, the political executives consist of Prime Minister, Cabinet Ministers, President, Vice President and the bureaucrats. At state level, they may be Governor, Chief Minister and Council of Ministers. Their main task is form the government and frame the policies of the state. They may either get changed every 5 years or if the party lost the power, then they will be leaving their office. They may belong to any political party. कोई भी एक political party का support में आया है 5 साल के लिए और support नहीं है तब निकल जाना पड़ेगा. Their qualifications are required to be elected and come to power as political executive are honesty, public service, public opinion and selection of public through voting. Public का support से voting में आना चाहिए और उनको public को सेवा करने का वो एबिलिटी होना ही चाहिए, साथ में ऑनेस्ट होना चाहिए, उनके ऊपर पब्लिक का विश्वास होना चाहिए, ऐसा वो सब क्राइटेरिया से हम वो लोग को इलेक्ट करता है, सिलेक्ट करते हैं. फिर दे आर द पॉलिटिकल एग्जीक्यूटिव्स लाइक आवर representatives. Either they will be from our member of legislative assembly, from the parliament representatives, member of parliament. These are the political executives. We will discuss about the administrative executives. The body of civil servants who are selected for almost permanent basis is called the administrative executive. The service of administrative officer is called the civil service. That is, they should be either IAS officer, IPS officer or our court judge. They all are administrative executives. The main role of the administrative executive is to serve the people as per the policies framed by the government. कौन है government? हमारा political executive. Political executives जो rules and regulations बनाया है वो executive करने के लिए political executives को मदद करना है. That is the duty of the administrative executive. The administrative executive carries out the work of implementing the policies, programs and planning of the government while keeping in view the aspiration and expectation of the people. Political leaders के साथ और people के साथ join करके दोनों काम करना है. That is the duty. दोनों के बीच में खड़े होके अच्छी तरह काम आगे लेके जाना है. The administrative executive is formed on a permanent basis. That is, the officers are appointed on a permanent basis, unlike political leaders who keep on changing with elections. Administrative executive, as I told you, एग्जामिनेशन पास होने के बाद एक बार अपॉइंट हो गया तो फॉर एग्जांपल एट द एज ऑफ 27 या 30 के आसपास वो लोग अपॉइंटमेंट होता है, तब से जब रिटायर होगा तब तक उनको सेवा करना पड़ेगा. फॉर एग्जांपल दे विल बी, फॉर एग्जांपल आवर कलेक्टर, IAS ऑफिसर, कलेक्टर ऑफ वडोदरा, मिसेस शालिनी अग्रवाल, शी इज़ वर्किंग हियर इन बड़ौदा फॉर मे बी 2, 3 और 4 ईयर्स. उसके बाद उनका इंटरनल ट्रांसफ़र में बड़ौदा छोड़ के उनका दूसरा डिस्ट्रिक्ट में जाना पड़ेगा. सो अनदर वन मिस्टर राव, असिस्टेंट डिप्यूटी, अभी स्पेशल चार्ज में आया है. वो भी पहले बड़ौदा का कलेक्टर था, फिर उसको स्पेशल रिक्रूटमेंट में वेयर एवर द पॉलिटिकल अथॉरिटीज़ दे आर ट्रांसफ़र जब होता है तब उसके हिसाब से उनको वहाँ जाके उनका ड्यूटी तो क्या है, सेवा करना ही है. सो वेयर एवर दे आर गोइंग दे हैव टू वर्क till the age of their retirement. But political administrative executives, they are having the duty to serve the people in that particular area. For example, our political executive है Mrs. Ranjan Ben Bhatt. तो whenever for this 5 year ये executive नरेंद्र मोदी गवर्नमेंट का ये टाइम पीरियड जब ख़त्म हो जाएगा तब तक उसको बड़ौदा में सेवा करने का है, उसका कॉन्स्टिट्यूएंसी में सेवा करने का है. फिर नेक्स्ट इलेक्शन में वो बड़ौदा में जीतेगा तो ही उसको वापस उधर करना पड़ेगा, अदरवाइज शी इज़ नॉट गेटिंग द चांस टू सर्व वी पीपल. अंडरस्टूड दैट डिफरेंस? सो द रिटायरमेंट एज ऑफ द एडमिनिस्ट्रेटिव एग्जीक्यूटिव इज़ डिफरेंट इन डिफरेंट स्टेट. वो भी मैंने बोला कई स्टेट्स में 56 या 57 रिटायरमेंट एज है, सम स्टेट्स इट इज़ 60. So according to the state which they belong, their retirement age is determined. If they misbehave or show lack of efficiency in their work, then they can be removed from their post using definite procedure. If the collector or assistant collector or IPS officer, commissioner, if they are not working properly, उनके ऊपर कुछ complaint है, misbehavior है, अच्छी तरह काम नहीं कर रहे, ऐसा सिचुएशन में उनको यहाँ से ये पोस्ट में से निकाल के उसका नेक्स्ट प्रोसीजर क्या है, ट्रांसफ़र होगा, कई छोटा एरिया में होगा, मीन्स दैट टाइप ऑफ पोजीशन में उनको ट्रांसफ़र कर सकते हैं. To become an administrative executive, one needs to have required educational qualification. As I told you, administrative executive में आपको आना है तो आपका education होना है. You should have a particular qualification. You have to pass the competitive examination. Which examination? IAS पास करने का है, Indian Administrative Service, and also gain some prerequisite experience. आपको डायरेक्टली IAS पास हो गया तो डायरेक्टली कलेक्टर नहीं बनेगा, आपको डिप्यूटी कलेक्टर, असिस्टेंट कलेक्टर जैसा ही ट्रेनिंग, यू विल गेट ट्रेनिंग एट स्मॉल पोस्ट, एंड आफ्टर दैट वंस यू आर एबल देन यू विल बी अपॉइंटेड एज द कलेक्टर और दैट टाइप ऑफ IAS कैटेगरीज में आपको जॉब मिल जाएगा. क्लियर? So I hope this section is clear for you. Administrative executives, total we are having 5 plus 4, 9 points are there. So that's the difference between, we have discussed about administrative executive, and the previous section we have discussed about political executive. Now here I am having the difference between political and administrative executive that you can read properly and you will be able to understand it. For example, first we will go through the political executive. As you know, political executives, they are the elected representatives and they form the government. For example, Prime Minister, President, Vice President, Chief Minister, Governor, MLA, MP, they all are from the political executives of our country. For example, they are for our MLA, MP, I told you, Mrs. Ranjan Ben, she is elected for the period of 5 years. So their time period is 5 years. What is their main job, task kya hai? To form the government and frame the policies to run the state. And what is the time period? Every 5 years they are having. Once the party lose the power, they will be resigning. Then the political executive belongs to one political party. कोई भी एक party का membership चाहिए. Otherwise, you will be from either from BJP or from Congress or from आम आदमी पार्टी. ऐसा बहुत सारा पार्टी है. कोई भी एक पार्टी का representative है. What is the qualification? The qualification required to get elected and come to power as political executive are honesty, public service, public opinion and selection of public through election. Voting through you will be elected. Now, what are the qualifications? What are the things for an administrative executive? What are the things which you differentiate from a political executive? From political में से administrative का difference क्या है? As I told you, they are civil servants. They are selected for an almost permanent basis. For example, IAS officer, IPS officer, our court judge, they all are administrative executives. What is their main job? To serve the people as per the policies framed by the government. देखो हमारे MLA या MP या Chief Minister या Prime Minister, they all whatever they are deciding वो help कर रहे हैं. Serve the people with the help of the policies made by the government. The administrative executive is formed on a permanent basis till once they are appointed तब से retirement तक. They do not belong to any political party. उनका खुद का मन में पार्टी होगा, but they won't serve under one banner. To become an administrative executive, one needs to have required educational qualification, pass competitive examinations like IAS and also gain some prerequisite experience as I told you. Okay, I hope you understood this section. What is the difference between administrative executive and a political executive? Done. Finally, we are moving to the worksheet of today's section. Today we are having only very small worksheet for you. For that, please come to page number 83. Page number 83, section 3, write short notes on. Section 1 and section 2, today we are not having any questions. From this section, we are having only one question, that is page number 83, section 3, write short notes on. And question number 2, executive powers of the state legislative assembly. Executive powers of the state legislative assembly. That answer I have discussed in this PPT I have discussed, that is in slide number 8. We are having with the heading executive powers of the state legislative assembly. I have given that in 6 points are mentioned there. Please copy down that points and complete the answer. Rest we will be discussing in the next lecture. By the time I want you to go through, read the textbook clearly. This section, today's section, please read it very carefully and write the main points and extra MCQs of this section. Today's section, आज जितना हमने discuss किया वो minimum 3 or 4 times आपको read करना है and prepare the main points of this section and add the extra MCQs of this section. Hope you are clear. Please keep it as a record. You may please write the difference between political and executive administrators, as well as differentiate between the legislative assembly and the legislative council into your notebook. This will help you, and copy the answer also. Hope you understood today's section. Tomorrow in the next lecture we will discuss about the next topic, that is President, Vice President and Prime Minister. The continuation of this topic we will discuss tomorrow in the next class. Till then, stay safe. God bless you.